Lillian Levoff, please go ahead.
I feel like watching Judy just made me break a sweat.
What's sweat? I don't sweat.
Good morning, everybody. So we just heard from Greg about how we're going to stay healthy, and now we're going to hear from me about how we're going to die. I am the Grim Reaper of the legal world. A little bit about me professionally. I'm what's referred to as a recovering litigator. I came out of school and I fought the good fight. And people ask me, why in the world would you choose the area of estate planning, which seems profoundly depressing and boring to people, not to me. And here's a story that is 100% true. When I was litigating, I was once in a courtroom, and I was waiting for my case to be called. And there was a case that was called before mine, and it was 3 children that had been fighting over their dead father's money. I don't know how long, I think for a very long time, because the case had settled and 3 lawyers were asking for money. And what we all heard was the judge say, I have before me an estate that is worth $1.3 million. I have before me an attorney's fees petition totaling $1.1 million. And this reaction that you all had was the reaction that all of us attorneys had in the courtroom. Mine was a little more extreme. I'm a girl, so I don't mind telling you, I went home and I cried. And I called my mother and I said, some poor man spent his life building a nest egg to leave his family. 3 lawyers are walking away with it. Is it their fault? No, not necessarily. They did their job. I don't know how long the case had been going on, maybe 10, 15 years, but was it avoidable? Maybe. Maybe. So that was the day that I decided that I was going to transition my practice into estate planning. And instead of fighting the good fight, I was going to help people avoid getting into a fight to begin with. So what a lot of people don't realize is that when they die, they know, I should probably have a will, right? You all know what a will is, right? Yes, shake your heads. Do I need to do lunges? We all pay attention, there are lunges. Everybody thinks I should probably have a will. And what they don't realize is that when people die in this state and in every state, whether or not they have a will, they have to go through a court process called probate. Probate is a long, tedious, and expensive court process. Here in Southern California, especially after the budget cuts, without any conflicts at all, you're looking probably at a minimum of 18 months. Your money is tied up in court, your families don't get it. But here's the bigger issue. The bigger issue is, how does this process get paid for? And the answer is that the fees are actually set by law. You don't negotiate it, you go to a lawyer, and the lawyer and the executor who's in charge of administering the estate gets a percentage of the fair market value of the estate. Now, I'm not going to make you do math, but I'm going to make you do a little math. I said fair market value. What does that mean? A lot of people I meet with say, I have a house, but the bank owns it. The bank owns the house. I just have a very little bit of equity. They figure, I have 50 grand in the house, the bank owns the rest. But if their house is worth $500,000 on the market, the lawyer gets a percentage of $500,000. And the executor gets the exact same amount. And the probate referee, which is the person appointed by the court to value the assets, gets a percentage based on the fair market value. So somebody who has a house, for instance, that's worth $500,000, can we agree that that's not super big in Los Angeles, right? We're talking about a conservative house. A person who has a $500,000 house, maybe they've been saving up, maybe they have a brokerage account that has $100,000 in it, right? We're not talking about a wealthy person. Dies, their family takes their estate through probate, that's a $30,000 bill minimum to pay for the cost of the probate. Is this avoidable?
Yes.
There's 2 ways to avoid it. The first is be poor. I don't recommend this strategy, but if you are poor, then you don't have to go through probate. The better strategy is a living trust. So the reason you hear this all the time, revocable trust, living trust, it means the same thing. The reason people get super gung-ho about living trust is because it completely takes you away from the court system. And why is that important? Number 1, we said money. Number 2, time. Number 3, probates are public. If I walked up to somebody in this room and said, hey, how much do you make for a living? Are you going to share that with us? Probably not. We tend to be private people, but when you die, all of your money, your bills, who you owe money to, all of that is public record, not when you have a trust. And then the part that I care most about, which is that when you invite people into a courtroom, something really interesting happens psychologically, which is that it invites conflict. Probate is not intended to be a conflict process, it's intended to be administrative. But you walk into a courtroom and you see a judge behind the bench and you think, this is where I'm going to get justice. The minute the judge hears that I took care of my mother and my brother was in New York and didn't even bother calling her on Mother's Day, that judge will understand that I should get more than half. And they go to some lawyer who says, and you say, I don't have money to hire a lawyer, and the lawyer says, don't worry, it'll come out of the estate. When you invite people into court, it invites conflict. So my job is to get people out of court. I'm a big fan of litigators. They're wonderful when they're good at their job, but if you can avoid litigation, can I get the litigators in the room to agree? If you can avoid litigation.
I do not wish litigation on my worst enemy.
Correct. I'm out of the litigation game for that reason. So the process of estate planning, what I do when I sit down with clients is I say first and foremost, what will happen to you, your body, your health, if something happens to you, if you become incapacitated? What will happen to your family and your children? Who will take care of them? And then finally and lastly, what will happen with your money? And when you work really hard to save up your money, you want to make sure that money is there to take care of you and ultimately go to your family. And if you're going through a court process, if you get Alzheimer's and you have to go through a conservatorship, yet more court, and all your money goes to lawyers, and then you die and the remainder goes to probate and more money goes to lawyers, that's really not why you guys got up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock this morning and went to the tip. That really wasn't the purpose of it. So my passion is to help people prepare. I'm really going to be a bummer here. Everybody here is going to die. I'm really sorry. I know, the bearer of bad news. It's inevitable. Many of you will also get very, very sick in old age. It's just statistically true. My job is to make sure that you're taken care of, that you have legally binding documents that are in place, so people don't wonder, what would this person have wanted in their final days? Or, better yet, who's going to take care of the children? Are there any parents of small children in the room? Do you ever stay up awake at night thinking if we went on vacation and something happened to us, who's going to take care of our kids?
No.
Nobody ever worries about that.
We have estate plans.
Very good, the lawyer said. Here's the thing. The judge is not the person to make that decision for you. You are the one to decide. Is it really going to be your parents? Are they young enough to take care of kids? Do you have a good relationship with them? Right? You should decide who takes care of your children. You should decide, more importantly, who takes care of you. If you're sick and in the hospital, you should decide who makes medical decisions for you. Not a court, and nobody should have to go to court to get someone appointed. You can make that decision. Does everyone remember Terry Schiavo?
Yeah.
The tragedy of Terry Schiavo is that all of that could have been avoided with a simple, inexpensive, and sometimes free document. The battle of Terry Schiavo was between her husband, not ex-husband, husband and parents. I meet with a lot of people who say, thank you, meet with a lot of people who say, I'm married. My husband's going to do that, or my wife's going to do that. In California, does your spouse automatically get access to your medical records? No. We have privacy. In fact, I have had clients whose spouses have been prevented from getting medical records so they can get a second opinion. I fax over their healthcare directive and the doors go wide open. So planning is the key, and also doing lots of lunges so that you live for a really long time. But since you're not going to live forever, as healthy as you may be, planning in advance to make sure that your children, your health, your money are taken care of, so that people like the lawyers in the room make money off legitimate conflict and not invented conflict. That's what I do, and if you have any questions, I am here to answer them. Yes, Mark.
So I understand about avoiding conflict, and especially the time and expense that's involved. Can you give us just one example of how a trust, a living trust, benefits you? Just one brief example.
A living trust? Do you know what a conservatorship is?
Yes.
Okay, does everyone know what a conservatorship is? So you know when children lose their parents, someone goes to court and gets appointed to be guardian? Yeah, so when an adult loses their mind, somebody has to go to court real quick and be appointed a conservator. If you have a trust and a healthcare directive, that entire process is unnecessary.
Thank you, Lillian.
You're very welcome.